nothing really, different about it.
Recording it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you for joining us week 8, talking about bad clients. But I want to do a quick little anecdote of a story, kind of talking about what we were before about looking for opportunity and pivoting your business and everything. I thought this was very interesting, kind of funny. So as you know, companies are trying to, boost their sales, especially restaurants right now, and take out everything like that. So if you were on any of the Uber, like Uber Eats, Grubhub and everything, and you're looking for pizza, I would suggest not ordering from Pasquale's Pizza and Wings, because this is Chuck E. Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese has changed their name. Yeah. Oh, this is even funnier what it is. So Chuck E. Cheese changed their name on all the delivery apps because hell, no one's ordering to go or pick up Chuck E. Cheese pizza and wings, right? So Pasquale is actually the rat's name in the band of Chuck E. Cheese. So which I think is kind of funny. Yeah, which I think is kind of funny. I was like, y'all went with the rat? Like, I don't know. It was an odd choice, but very interesting. I think it's smart, but I probably wouldn't have gone with the rat. But I thought that was an interesting move and pivot. I've gone by the Chuck E. Cheese on Barrett Parkway on my way to Academy, and I see it's just like painted and signs out, $5 pizza, $5 wings, and I was thinking like, wow, they're not going to survive. And then I heard that the other day, and I thought that was really interesting. But on to our topic about how to handle or what to do with bad customers and clients. And I put in there in parentheses, especially, when every transaction counts. I know some of y'all have really built up your business through the years, and it's probably easier for you to fire a bad client when necessary. I went through that phase once, but now I'm at the time where if I do have a bad client, I can't necessarily do that because every transaction does count for me at this point. When I started in real estate and I was doing investments, I definitely had some bad ones that I had to fire. But opening up with a quote. So today I was trying to look for both sides of the equation, but for some reason the internet was actually nice when looking for quotes, and it acted like everyone's just happy, which was really weird because there is a quote that I was looking for that I could not find. But here's one about why the customers are right. From Sam Walton, I think maybe many of y'all have heard of him. Founded this little store called Walmart. There's only one boss, the customer, and he can fire everybody in the company from the chairman on down simply by spending his money somewhere else. Which is very true. If you don't satisfy your customers and you don't have good customer service, they vote with your dollar. That's what capitalism is. People seem to forget that, especially in our cancel culture. It's like you can literally ruin a business if you get a team of internet trolls behind you. Whatever your stance on gay marriage is, shutting down a business because they won't bake you a cake is insane to me. I'm like, just go somewhere else. Who cares? Yeah, I'm like, who cares? I was like, if someone didn't bake me a cake, I'd be like, fine, don't take my money. I'm going somewhere else.
Exactly. I will spend my dollars somewhere else.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So.
What you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's sad that that's the time we live in, that a business can be taken down through an army of tweets. But I think that's something that we do have to be sensitive to is not riling up a customer if they're already riled up, and how to do that. So I went through a period where I fired a client of mine multiple times, and he would resurface.
Bad penny.
Yeah, and the thing is, you'd always resurface at kind of times of need, and it was kind of like a little godsend, but it was always the hardest work I've ever done for a $500 commission check or a $1,000 commission check. He was an investor, international guy, and he owned multiple businesses. He, property management company, he owned a moving company, everything like that. And whenever he was difficult because he's not responsive, he would demand a lot when it would come to a closing. He was late on everything. I had to hound him for earnest money checks. I mean, drive down to his place, go to his brother-in-law's place, get a check from a family member. So I had to fire him multiple times, and I would have the conversation with him. I would just tell him, like, look, you're not worth my time. You're not worth the money. Like, Eli, you make it too difficult. I wouldn't hear from him for a few months, and then he would resurface. But so I had to do that. But like right now, Matt sent me an email after I sent this out because we're working with someone who it's always difficult. Of course, y'all know when you have many talking heads behind an organization, when you're trying to get a deal done or get something accomplished, and there's people who are not even financially involved in the business, but they're a parent or a spouse, are constantly chirping in, makes it really hard. So I'm in this call. I'm really looking for some guidance with this and how you deal with people like that from y'all's experience. Yesterday, I think I was able to kind of overcome some of it and had a real straight up conversation with him, telling him, like, look, this is your business and your money. Now, granted, they might be helping out some, but we need to push this through, if you want to get open, especially with everything else in the world going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So on that, my turn to shut up. And Cheryl, if you'll start us off today.
So I went through this exact same thing last year, where I was just a year in and really everything mattered, right? And I had a client and I fired him and he didn't accept being fired. So, but what that turned into was I stood up for myself. I explained things that needed to be done in the timeline that they needed to be done. And if he couldn't do that, then he needed to find someone else. But what that did was first of all, it gave me huge confidence. And then second of all, it turned him into the ideal client because I did show my expertise. I did stand up for myself and I did explain to him why things are not going the way they should be going. And so it was incredibly freeing to fire that client, and I was ready to let him go, even though he ended up staying with me and we ended up doing the deal.
Wow.
So what I find is that I was holding on to him and not standing up for myself and my expertise because I was afraid to lose him. But once I did lose him, I got other business. I actually got other business off of him.
Wow.
So it was I was unsure of my own self to begin with. And my own expertise because I had only been a year at this side of the business. And so, like I said, it was just completely freeing and it built my confidence to go out and find other clients. And I think part of his problem, and I have a unique situation to the rest of you, is that I'm a woman. I'm a woman in a financial field. And some men don't appreciate that expertise.
Right.
Right. And so, actually firing that client was a huge win.
Yeah.
It ended up being.
I'm sure he respected you more because of it. And, on what you're saying, like that, with the men not giving you respect, I know my wife talks about that some. She's a personal trainer, and she coached CrossFit at a very high-end gym before, like a CrossFit gym in a very wealthy area with all these C-level guys, and she always talked about that's the hardest thing. And she's like, look, whatever you may feel or anything, she's like, it's hard to get that respect until you do exactly what you did. I know for me, I respond to a woman standing up for herself much better than like just cowering back,
Right. Right. I have a history of that. I've worked in a lot of different, well, I've worked in a lot of different areas where women don't normally work. So my first real career was actually at a car dealership.
Wow.
Oh,
In the service department.
Yeah.
So with mechanics, right, who
Rough and
generally,
yeah.
exactly, yeah, generally rough and tumble, not a lot of respect for women, don't think that women know anything about cars, but my mom taught me about cars. So it was natural for me to be there. And the way I handled them, because I worked in the dispatch department, which was, in a dealership, you bring your car in and the service advisor helps you and they sort of diagnose on the lane. And then they send it to you with a description. And so something like, somebody might say that the transmission is jerking, but in reality, it's a drivability problem. So it's spark plugs or something like that. The car will buck. And so I had to differentiate which department it went to. Did it go to transmission or did it go to drivability? And so I just basically had to train them. If you don't appreciate my ability, I will give that to someone else, and that someone else will make money.
Right.
And you will get these easy 3,000-mile oil changes, which you can't make any money off of.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't take very long for them to figure out that I pretty much knew what I was doing. And then if I didn't, I was easy to apologize and say, oh, you're right. I see what you're saying there. Right. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely have to stand up for yourself, especially in the business environment, especially, dealing with men, maybe my generation, not so much. We got a lot of people that don't know how to stand up for themselves and definitely back away. But, y'all's generation, everything is definitely went through a much harder time, I just interview stories about my dad. I'm like, I can't believe that was even legal. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, how is that even possible to do in an interview or put on? And so, I mean, yeah, kudos to you. And you made a really good point, though. You turned your bad client into an ideal client, and then turned him into the number one client, which is a prophecy, which goes out and tells how good you are in business, and you got more business off that. That's incredible.
And, admittedly, it could have gone the complete other way, right?
Yeah.
It could have gone the complete other way, but at the time it was necessary. I mean, this one client was monopolizing all my time to the detriment of my other clients. And then questioning my expertise. And I basically just said, here's my expertise. Here's why things are off the rails. And if you think you can find someone else, you need to do that today.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, good. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad,
It was super scary at the time.
Yeah. Yes. Well, especially when you need every transaction. I feel you. Standing up for yourself definitely helps. And if you can turn someone into a profit for you, you obviously did the right thing.
Like I said, could have gone the whole other way. And I had, I was shaking on the phone the whole time going, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? But it was the right thing. And it freed me up to then make that a smoother process so that I could help my other clients. And that was really the problem, is that I couldn't help other clients because he would just kept calling and he was just spinning me up. So yeah.
I mean, the black lines can suck your soul and your time, like you said, and it takes away from everyone else, for sure. Well, that's awesome. Great story. I'm glad I picked you first, because that was a perfect one to lead us off. All right, Dad, if you're up next.
Okay. Yeah. And just bear with me. You'll probably think I'm going around the world with this, but when I looked at this, I looked at bad client and how to basically prioritize them. And I also took it a step further to prospect. So I look at it like, if they're a client and they're paying me, they are not a bad client. It's just some are better than others. And And so I feel like I have to prioritize based upon the revenue off of that client, how much time and expertise I give them. Now, and I'll never forget, my dad was a super salesperson, and after I'd been working with him for about 3 years, he said, all right, go back and look at your book of business and analyze it and come back and tell me what you learned. And basically, I feel like that when you're prospecting and or trying to bring on a new client, you have to set a value system for your client. And I looked at some people I made $10 off of. This was way, 40 years ago. And then some people I made $1,000 off of. And he said, you're spending the same amount of time with both of those clients. You've got to learn how to fire a client and tell them that they don't fit your mold as a prospect. You've got to figure out it's much easier to have 10 clients you're making $1,000 off of than 10 clients you're making $10 off of, because they're going to require the same amount of service. So he said, when you learn how to fire a client, and basically back then it wasn't firing a client, not going after that particular business as a client, then you're going to start making money. He says, just having volume on the books doesn't make you money. It can be too labor intensive to where you go. So basically, it's just that's something I've learned over the years is to, and Reed knows this about me. I go for different sectors of the market, and those sectors generate a certain amount of money. So there's no reason for me to change and be vertically integrated and say, I want to write everybody that in the whole world. That's not what I want to do. I want to be streamlined in what I do, make every client and every prospect a profitable client. And I'd rather have a smaller business with profitable clients than a larger business that has many, many clients and I have to hire layers of employees to just service them and you don't make any money off of them. So that's my 2 cents. So
Right. No, I mean, you definitely made a good point. Yeah. Something that I've tried to integrate and kind of comprehend on my level too about base prospecting, and it's not just the volume aspect, like you said. So it's like I'm prospecting, but it's hard to assign a value to my clients when everything is on a sliding scale. I can have a medical space that's 1,000 feet in Gainesville, or I can have 1,000 feet medical space in Atlanta. And that's a difference of, $10,000 on my paycheck. I mean, it can be just based off of a slight term issue and just the rate issues. So and I'm going after right now, our model is the volume, quality, but volume, because it's an underserved market. Our competitors won't touch anything basically under 5,000 square feet. So we're trying to go after all the small businesses. But I guess it's like, we'll see, because we started our analytics this past week, started running that in the background to really see who's coming and going. And I think probably the next 6 months or year, we'll really be able to tell, like you said, if it was worth spending X to get, a small return on.
Well, and I think what you said makes a lot of sense. And I don't think people, definitely on this call, that I'm an elitist. I'm not. Your client that has the Thai tea company. I want to do business with them because they want to put in 10 shops, 10 shops rather than just one. And like your client that wants to have an office in Gainesville for a medical office, maybe that's a satellite office from your Atlanta office where you made $10,000 off of. I mean, that all makes good sense. Or if you see the potential for their growth, right? And I don't mind taking a chance. And you certainly don't mind doing business with people that are pleasant. It doesn't make any, that they, like Cheryl said, maybe they refer you to somebody else or
Right.
whatever else. So, a referral is worth, 10 times the weight in gold. So,
Yep. You spent zero on that marketing or that
Yep.
customer acquisition.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a key point, AC. It's I've kind of it's interesting. I mean, I wasn't in the very traditional sales role, and now I'm in the business development, so it's a little different in how all that is managed. But that's key. You always got to look down the road. Where's the value past this transaction? Because if you look at it just transaction by transaction, man, you're going to be chasing your tail the whole time. You've got to get it to where that thing starts to, make money for you as well. And that's choosing the right people. And exactly. I mean, I've had to do the same thing that you do, where it's like, okay, this is not a good fit for us. We're spending too much time for too little result. And I don't see, this changing. In situations, it's probably something like what you did too, that you maybe just did go after. But in a situation like that, where maybe there is a little bit of relationship there, and you're like, okay, how do I transition this? I've been in that situation where you basically can kind of have that conversation and say, I think you're better served by this or by this person or this other option. I don't think this is going to be a good fit for you. I don't think that value is there. And so, here's somebody that I know, and let me put you guys together. And so, you're still providing that value and looking out for them, and can make that conversation a little easier. Sometimes what Cheryl was hinting at, I think there are those people out there in the world that don't really open up until you challenge them. And I think it is a challenge to you to see if you will stand up for yourself, and if you do know what you are, and you're willing to say, hey, you know what, I know what I'm doing here. And then I have had those experiences too, where it's just suddenly it's like a 180 reverse. It's like, okay, so you were playing me the whole time, which is not really appreciated. It's funny on hindsight, not fun when you're doing it. But in the architecture world, it is different in that, a lot of times we really don't know who, especially in some of a lot of the public work, who our client really is going to be, because it is a municipality. There's politics involved. There's a lot of people. So you go after these projects, and sometimes, this is going to be tough. They're going to be, but it's not so much that they're disagreeable. It's just they're very, very hard to get to agreement on anything. Just to get in front of and get response from, you got to chase them at a time. The nice thing about that is those projects end. You're kind of in there, you get that design, it's over, you move on. And if everything didn't fall apart, generally they think kindly of you, and so the next time it comes around, they're like, "Hey, these guys do a great job," and you're like,
right,
man, you nearly killed me last time. for us, I think it's that the customer focus almost turns into our teaming partners, more so than the end client, who we're working with on the engineering, the developers, the brokers such as yourself, and everybody who we put together. That's my main role, is that chess game of, all right, who's best for this project. Because you've got to find your team partners that you can trust and rely on. They're going to do good work, but also that's that network that you put together. And then, as AC is alluding to, that then carries forward, because now we're all looking out for each other, and like, hey, I enjoyed working with this engineering firm on this project, so I'm going to list them on more stuff, and then just it starts to build and build and build. On the counter, when you have one that completely drops the ball, yeah, you got to drop them. And I think it's fair sometimes if it depends on the person, to where you can have that conversation. Go, you know what? I can't use you on this. Your guys. Generally, you're dealing with another person, like another business development or principal of that firm. Is like, man, you guys really dropped the ball on this thing. And a lot of times they already know. And they're apologizing, and there's like, well, I think I'd make some changes. I actually just had to have a conversation with the engineering firm, and they've got a guy who actually does not have a degree. He's been in mechanical engineering his whole life. He knows what he's doing. He's a great guy, but when you put it on a proposal, it doesn't sell. Because everybody else has got a master's from tech, and all kinds of certifications. And for his, and they ask specifically in these education, and his is a blank. So it's like, I've had to tell him, I'm like, love working with you guys, but we can't list this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I know he's your mechanical lead, but he does nothing for us on these proposals. We got to list somebody who's degreed and accredited. You can still use them for the production, but we can't list them. And they're kind of like, and they're like, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like,
Wow.
he's a legacy, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with that. And they're like, actually, that's a good idea. We maybe not list him, but use him on the production side because he knows what. I was like, yeah, because that doesn't help.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can imagine being in that field. Especially when you're saying someone like a mechanical engineer or structural engineer. That's a. I'm of the fact that I don't think everyone needs to go to college. A lot of it's a waste, but for stuff like that, there's definitely a need.
There is.
I definitely want to learn about it.
And this guy's been doing it for 30 years, but he'll never be able to get his PE or professional engineer certification because he doesn't have a degree.
Wow.
So, he'll never sell to a client. And actually, the first time I listened, they gave me this information. I called their marketing person. I was like, hey, I don't have this guy's education. He's like, yeah, he doesn't have one. I was like, oh.
I didn't even know that was the thing. So is like the municipalities the ones vetting this? Is that what you're saying, that it's hard to sell to them?
Public and private. Yeah. I mean, anybody looking. I mean, the private's going to be a little easier. They're going to be a little less demanding sometimes. Depends on the scale of the project. If it's a large project, as you've probably seen, Reed, they'll bring in project management and owners reps. Now, those are the guys that are going to be vetting everything, and so they're going to be looking at all the information. If it's a smaller project, we're like, hey, I like you guys. You pick out the engineers. Let's just get this done. They're not going to look. They're not going to care. So he's great for that. And he's good for this other stuff, too, but you just can't list him as your lead for mechanical engineering in that situation. So that was a conference. I had a good friend of mine who had moved over to that company. At the same time, he was trying to figure out how to deal with this, how to navigate it. I'm like, you're going to have a conversation with everybody and go, hey, guys, we're not competitive on paper this way. So we've got to transition so that we still get the work and keep everybody busy. There's going to have to be internal lead and what we show outside. So it's that one was very curious, and I was like, oh, and especially in this town. I mean, you've got Georgia Tech, and right here, and the other. I mean, Southern Poly and everything else. I mean, which is now Kennesaw. There's more than enough out there. So it just really sticks out at like a sore thumb. Especially on your municipal stuff. And so, actually, yesterday was, we were interviewing other firms for joint venture partnership for some work at the airport. And man, I mean, I was thinking about you, and one of the later calls. I think it was 4:15 yesterday. And a firm, small firm, it's a minority-owned design firm, which you have to have percentage on this thing. So that's the partner we were looking for. And this guy was just arrogant. It's an old firm in town, you know, and it's kind of, they've worked that system for a long time. You know, and this project, everything I'm getting is the airport is looking to end that same old, same old. You know,
good.
You know, the percentages will still be there.
Right.
Those demands will still there. I mean, it's the politics are still there, but they've got this interesting. Sorry, I'm reading. AC, I'm going around the world on this one. Sorry.
No,
You're good. Yeah. But they've got a list of 6 projects that are basically the current projects at the airport. And if you are involved in any aspect on any one of them, you're excluded for going after this project. And I mean, talk about ruffling some feathers. You know, and on the other side, you know, the airport has also just eliminated some of their best providers, because these are people, this is their tried and true. You know, we kind of happened to fortunately be in the situation where we hadn't worked at the airport in a while. So we've got the background in you know, aviation's one of our specialties. We're clean. We've never been caught up in scandal, and but we just haven't been there in a while because we've been working everywhere else. And so it really plays into our favor. You know, but yeah, I was thinking about that on that call going, man, this guy, we can't work with this guy. He's going to come in there, you know, with like, well, I've been involved here from the beginning, and, you know, this is how it's done. It's like, that's not what they want to hear. They know how it's done, and they want you to just do it and do it effectively, on time, and on budget. They have a new president over there. John Selden came from JFK, and he's an operations guy, and he is nickel and dime in that place. I mean, he is all over the money. In fact, he approves change orders, which I've never heard of a president of an airport approving change orders. Yeah, so, especially one the size of Hartsfield-Jackson. But
I guess because all the scandal, you know, and all the money to greasing the palms, I mean, they needed someone to be able to clear house and actually track where that money was going.
Yep, sure. Absolutely. And they've had quite a few projects they've not been able to deliver. They just stopped, you know, and they're still trying to get them through. And so that's a big part of on him is delivery. We've got to get this stuff done. We're getting behind. You know, because it was interesting. I sat down on a Council for Quality Growth session with him Wednesday. And his analogies just was hilarious to me. But he described, he said, you know, this is not, it's a 40-plus-year-old facility, still very relevant, still very effective. We've made the infrastructure investments to keep it going. I said, it is not high design. We are not a high design people. I said, this is not Ruth's Chris or Del Frisco's. We're the place you take your family on Tuesday when you just don't want to cook. I was like, we are the Chili's of airports.
The Chili's of airports. I love that.
I love it.
You know, but that tells you everything you need to know about John Selden. Yeah, it's like,
We're the
don't
place
come
you
to him with
taste
something
it.
overly fancy, because he's going to be like, no, that's expensive.
Yeah.
Durable, functional, long lasting. That's what he wants.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, Cheryl, it looked like you were trying to speak a few times. Do you have any points? I don't want to.
I do, because AJ brought up a really great point. It is about you going after your ideal client, because if you go after your ideal client, you won't be firing as many clients, right? I think that's a really great point. So for me, that looks like when I tell people I work with first-time home buyers, well, sure, but I got a lot of first-time home buyers that want down payment assistance, and that is not my ideal client. Well, first of all, we all know that people take advantage of systems, right? So it's usually somebody who doesn't need it and can't actually qualify because they don't need it, right? And it's a rabbit hole that I don't want to get into. Right. So I refer them out, plain and simple. And I just tell people, you know, I'm not the expert in that, so because I don't work in this space very often. So I would prefer to, send you to someone who is an expert in that so that they can make this as seamless as possible. But here's why I think it's not a great idea, right? And because down payment assistance is never a great idea. It's more expensive on the rate. It's not actually free money. Because if you are 30 days late by accident, then you have to pay it all back, including interest. So it's touted as free money, but it's not at all what it is. And then I show them, well, if you were to not do that and do the normal route instead, this is really what it looks like. And normally they end up staying with me. So the other part of that is when you're firing a client, you have to make sure you take all emotion out of it and make sure you lay out the facts of why you're having to fire them, right? This isn't working, you don't have the education we need, making sure you're putting in the facts, because if you lead with emotion, then
right.
Yeah.
It never turns out well. I know. Mm-hmm.
I think that's when it does turn into that person that badmouths you everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you use emotion and subjective ideas instead of facts. And once you give them facts, they can't,
Yeah. It's hard to dispute it then on why they were being bad.
Yeah.
I know, although if we were talking about the cake situation, right? I'm sure they had plenty of facts, right? But that, you said it perfectly earlier, is that you are part of the capitalism world, and our bent is to say, oh, well, I'll just take my dollars elsewhere. We're not destroying somebody else, but I think that if you are in the more left leaning, or the further left you lean, the less capitalist you actually are.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to put emotion into it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
I've always agreed with exactly what you said. That obviously the more left you are, a little left to center, you're definitely going to be less capitalist, more socialist, and everything. And add that what you just said made it so much sense. They have to put emotion because there's nothing else then.
Yeah.
That's what it's all based off of, is emotion and greed. So if they don't have facts, they have to put emotion behind it. That is well said.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We finished up quick. Does anybody have any points they want? I got a win this week. That was good. So
Good.
yeah, I got a client came to me via my interior designer / general contractor. She was dating a guy. They're no longer together, but they're still like friendly. His first company, he invented when he was in college, the implant that Peyton Manning got in his back. So it is a porous bone material. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That gets inserted, and then your bone actually grows around it and it becomes your own.
Mm-hmm.
So this individual invented that.
Is he local to Atlanta?
Yes.
So my former boss, I think, has invested in his company.
The new one?
I don't know. The porous bone thing.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, he probably was. So what they did was him and his professor created the company once they were like, oh my God, and then they hired a guy who has, I guess, all he does is help scale and sell. So they built it up and then they sold it. He's a hectamillionaire or something.
Yeah.
And then now he started a new medical device company called Huxley Med. And so he reached out to me for space because currently they're at Georgia Tech in their incubation, business incubation, R&D development. Well, tech is shut down.
Yeah.
They won't let anyone. He can't even go in and get his files. They will not let him inside the building. It has to be essential R&D. So he was telling me yesterday or the day before that he had to get one of his employees, somehow finagle a system as essential R&D and get them to go in and get his files. So he's like, he's like, I gave the middle finger to tech. He's like, I got to work.
Yeah.
So right now he needs it 12, 18 months. Very small. It's going to be nothing, on the commission side, but it's going to grow into something much larger. I'm at least hoping, if I can create the customer satisfaction and service of a client like that. So that's what I'm focusing on.
Right.
Yeah.
I know somebody that can handle his insurance. So.
Exactly. I got something like that. Right.
So, the two of you, AJ and Reed, have you come into my Help Small Business group?
No.
No, where's that?
So I have a Facebook group that's called Help Save North Atlanta Small Businesses and Restaurants.
Oh yeah, that thing you started. That means I have to get on Facebook, and Dad just got a Facebook.
Oh, well, but it's got 450 members.
Okay,
I'd love to.
So we've got people there that are small business owners, side hustles, whatever, but restaurants, right? So I think the two of you could benefit from being in there.
Yes. And it's Help Small Business North Georgia?
Help Save Atlanta, Help Save North Atlanta,
Save.
Small Businesses and Restaurants.
Okay, looks like I got to get on Facebook again.
All right, tomorrow, Reed. Tomorrow you can help me with that.
Okay.
I'll send you the link to the group. I'll put it in an email. But right now it's pretty hyper local. I do post in some things for, like small business owners I know that are inside the perimeter, but most of it's north.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your insurance is going to be a great ad for them. Everybody's in flux right now, trying to figure out how to stay in business, stay relevant, figure out how to operate under all these rules, and that kind of thing. So, and then plus reducing expenses. So
that's perfect.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Thank you.
Matt, I got a question for you. I got invited to a group that you're in. I saw you on the email.
Okay.
The CCC.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, there's not a lot of value because it's mostly people on the build side, and that's after we're done.
Yeah.
Generally the build side looks to the design side for project information. There are some of the larger contractors that are involved kind of from the beginning sometimes with owners.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this group, I'd say my main criticism on that one, it's an odd time, but it's too large. There's always
118 people in it.
Yeah, and maybe 40 of them will show up, but even with that, there's way too much noise.
Mm-hmm.
To where you're really not going to get much out of it. The guy who's kind of set that up, I've got a couple of issues.
Chris, are you talking about Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know Chris? Yeah.
Well, he reached out to me.
Okay.
And we were actually at Georgia Southern at the same time.
Okay.
I didn't know him necessarily. I knew some of the people, and he was actually in the same program as Macy, but she was already ahead of him. So she's like, yeah, I don't know. He's already made some connections that seem to be okay, but I didn't know if so I missed last week. I was mixing hog bait as the Zoom was going on. So I just had it. I was in the back of a truck mixing hog bait, and I just had it on the truck bed, like facing. I had it muted, and my face off. I was listening, and I'm very redneck. If you can't tell by.
Well, I was just thinking that's the first time I've ever heard that phrase on some sort of mastermind or networking event.
Sorry, guys. I'm making hog bait.
Yeah. And then last night, so I was going to do it again. And then last night I got caught up with my neighbor, Cheryl. I was telling Dad earlier, I was riding his motorcycle. He has a new bike, and he's a new rider. His wife rides a Harley every day, and he got a Yamaha MT-07. And so He put
Oh.
nukes. Yeah, so I was riding around those. But yeah, God, I was wondering, I pulled up the first time, and it was like 100 people. And I was like, on a Zoom call, so you can't get shit done. I was like, this is dumb.
No, you really can't.
Right.
Yeah, so I didn't know if you've actually been to one of the live events or if it's been something beneficial for you at all. I was wondering.
I went to actually even sponsored because it was pretty cheap. One of the contractors, closers, and connectors, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like over in Gwinnett County at an old kind of home DIY type place that's closed. And it was just kind of sketchy. And I walked in, and really it was a lot of people, kind of playing in different markets. And for us, there really wasn't. I saw a couple of guys I knew from some contractors there, and chatted with them. But there was some elements of it. He hires in. I will just say attractive.
That's what he told me. He was like, "Yeah, we got girls and drinks." I was like, "So you hire models,
like, man,
shot girls?"
It's like, what are you doing? You can't do this. That's and I know, especially in the AEC community. I mean, a lot of marketing and business development. It's male and female. It's not male dominated at all. It is very, very blended. And a lot of women that I know, my compatriots out there, do not like him at all.
Okay.
They're like, what are you, this is just insulting, and I'm like, this guy might be a good one to just kind of keep at arm's length.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
So, I was going to say, if he's hiring shot girls, right, or women to come in, he doesn't appreciate the mind. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know if he's like what he's trying to make it, because he was telling me about it. He's like, yeah, it's large. We got X number of members. We had bands. He's like, we got pretty girls. And I was like, wait, am I going to a nightclub?
Yeah,
exactly. I was like, I do that on Friday nights, but like, I was like,
and Chris comes from gym members, like kind of gym management.
Yep. Gotcha.
That's kind of his background. Then he was with a demo company, and now he ended up at Cooper, which is a decent sized contractor. I'm kind of wondering how that fit is going. And we can talk some other time. There's a lot of things I've kind of heard about that, and I hope are not true, because he's setting himself up for a lot of trouble if it is. He's a nice guy. I'd like to be able to help him, but he's kind of also got just a little too much arrogance in there.
And
it's like, okay.
Well, he also sends crazy long emails and weird introductions.
And stuff that he puts out there, he does, and stuff that he puts out there on social media is not going to help him at all. It follows along with the shot girls.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
You gotta be so careful. Yeah.
You do. Yeah. You really do.
Well, I think, that's perfect point, to kind of, we'll wrap this up. I got a workout planned.
There you go.
With the wife, we're going, she's actually making me run. Disgusting. Disgusting. But, I think this is a perfect way to end, talking about bad customers and clients. It also goes for your network and who you associate yourself with. So if, I'm glad to know that, because I don't want to be associated with, like you said, maybe keep an arm's length. Maybe I can get some good connections. I've already gotten one from it with a developer.
Good.
But it's definitely in this world that we live in, and with photos of you can't hide from a camera anymore. It's about perception and who you're with, and that goes for your network as well.
Somebody posted a bunch of photos from a motorcycle board that I used to be on.
Yeah.
And I recognize everybody in the photos, and people are like, Cheryl, where are you? I am hiding from all your stupid stuff. Because there's drunkenness, there's nakedness, there's everything, and I'm like, can't do that anymore, though. These photos are what? Almost 20 years old. right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now they're all out there, right? They were never on
Yeah.
Facebook before. Now they are.
Yeah.
Like, but Cheryl, where are you?
Yeah.
I have
I'm watching for all those cameras.
deniability.
Smart.
Oh, I was there.
Yep, exactly. But you were smart then to get away from it.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, I gotta say, I'm so glad that social media was not around when I was in my 20s.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah, it started with me, but the advent of the smartphone was just then, and we were the first wave, so I was able to hide from most of it, and then it all happened. But I noticed it quickly.
When I was doing stupid stuff, right? I had a phone that came in a briefcase.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Bag phone.
Bag phone.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You were the player. With those
Yeah,
things.
exactly. Like the-
And not even sure why I really needed it because
yeah,
Very few
why?
people had
I worked in a restaurant.
but it was cool.
It was cool, yeah.
Awesome.
So we were talking about big groups real quick.
Mhm.
The MP group. Reed, do you know Bailey Cooper? He's been to Real Estate Connections a couple times.
I think so.
He was handling the new credit card services that they use.
Okay.
So the MP group has put together a Zoom, and I think there were 84 people. The last one I did on Monday, they handle it pretty well in Zoom. They have sort of a, hey, we have a collective discussion real quick. It's maybe 10 minutes, and then they break them out into rooms for 15 to 20 minutes, and there's a discussion question. So you're in a room with like 5 or 6 other people. Not necessarily in your field, but more connections, right? And you're having deep discussions. It is a little long. It's about an hour and a half. But again, you get the way that they break you out into groups. It works out really well because you do get the deeper connection.
Yeah.
Have a discussion. So I'll send you that invite
Yeah,
too.
please do. Please do.
It's not industry specific. It's all kinds of industry.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
still,
Yeah, that's effective.
I can send that.
Yeah.
They do a really great job with it. I was surprised. I was like, how do you
Okay.
manage 100 people, right?
Yeah.
And he does the first one was a little clunky, but I think we've had 3 now, and it's working out really well.
Awesome. Yeah, please send that to me.
Sure, absolutely. If you're looking for more networking relationship opportunities, me too. Always.
Yeah. Well, everyone enjoy y'all's long weekend. I guess if people take off Fridays, I don't know. I'm working, but enjoy it. Dav, see you tomorrow.
Yes,
Matt,
sir.
I'll be talking to you later.
Yep.
Cheryl, I hope I talk to you next week or something too as well. Enjoy your time off, and I hope everyone has some good ribs, hot dogs, and celebrate this.
Business as usual for me.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, y'all have a good weekend.
You too. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.